Hi, students. So let's talk about the fish wars. This is a piece of social justice related to right here in the Pacific Northwest. So in 1853, the Washington Territory Governor Stevens took 64 million acres from the local natives, but said that these natives had the right to take fish at all their usual and accustomed grounds and stations, and is further secured to these Indians. So he was taking their land and putting them on reservations, but didn't want to have to provide food for them. So therefore, he said they could continue all of their regular fishing. This was a treaty between the Native Americans and the U.S. government. This is law. That was in 1853. And so as the Native Americans were moved onto their smaller reservations, they continued to fish. However, following World War II, so almost 100 years later, after World War II, sport fishing becomes quite a popular activity. It has grown exponentially. However, at the same time, dams have been put in the rivers, causing fish numbers to drop. There is also pollution in the waters, causing numbers of fish to drop. Deforestation that causes thick, dirty runoff into the water because the dirt is no longer being stabilized on the land by the trees, changes the water to be murkier, which doesn't allow the fish, the salmon, to continue to live quality lives. And so at the same time that sport fishing is increasing, the numbers of salmon are decreasing. And because of this, white people are trying to protect the salmon for themselves. So the Washington state started to enact laws that required Native Americans to not fish anywhere but their reservations. This caused Native Americans it sent them into an uproar that this treaty, the U.S. government has already taken their land, and now they're trying to take their right to fish, which is really illegal because a federal treaty supersedes state laws. This led to the fish wars in Washington, and that is what we're going to be looking at today. At the end of the fish wars in 1974, so about 30 years later, 1974, there was a federal ruling called the Bolt decision, B-O-L-D-T, the Bolt decision, named after Judge Bolt. And this decision said that Native Americans are entitled the opportunity to take up to 50% of the harvested fish and an equal part in the management of the fishing industry. This was a huge win for Native Americans. They were allowed up to 50% of all fish harvested in the state of Washington, allowing them back to their traditional areas. So the treaty was upheld. Now, the racism that led to the fish wars did not end just because the fish wars ended in success for the Native Americans. Following the Bolt decision, white sports fishermen began adopting the same tactics that the natives were using. And that tactic was a fish in, kind of like what we study in the Civil War, the sit-ins, where African American Black people would sit at lunch counters, where lunch counters are essentially at the bar area of a deli, where Black people were not allowed due to segregation and racism. They would just go and sit peacefully. We saw the same thing happening with the fish-ins. Native Americans just continued to fish in their area, fish their traditional areas during the fish wars. And so the white men, racist white men, adopted the same tactic and would go sit and fish in native areas. And so the continue of the racism, even though there was an end in the success for the Native Americans. So today we're going to take a look at the fish wars in the Pacific Northwest.